The first will of God for our purpose is to love God. Simple as that, to love God. And actually, Mark 12:30 says, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. He covered us head to toe, inside and out. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. That is our very first purpose. Very first purpose in life. In fact, when you read a little bit of that scripture, Jesus was asked, what is the greatest commandments? And this greatest commandment, and he said to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. That is where we start. That is where we start loving God. It's with all of our heart, with all of our soul. That is our first purpose, above everything else, is to focus wholeheartedly on God with everything in us, holding nothing back. Relationship with God first. I think we get things mixed up and we think, well, why don't I find my purpose and that's how I worship God? Why don't I do for God and that's how I love God? But that's not the way it works. You have the relationship with Him first. You serve and love Him first. You give your all to Him, all of your attention, all of your hurt, all your pain. You let Him work inside of you. And that is our first purpose. Now, here's the crazy cool thing. Once you do that, you fill up with God, right? You fill up with God, like He is in every fiber of your being. He is inside. He is in your heart and your mind and your soul. He is your strength. He is your everything, which gives us the power to do the very next verse, which is Mark 12:31, which says, love your neighbor as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. Now, we actually have two things going on here. I didn't say this in the last one. We have two things going on here: loving your neighbor and loving yourself. Because it says love your neighbor as yourself. Loving your neighbor and loving yourself. And that's easy to do when you have God inside of you. When you've put God first, when He is your priority. Because there's this word that Christians like to use, right? I call it Christianese. And that is that God uses us. God, use me. God, I want to be used. See, I believe that God works through us. I believe He works through us, not so much using us. It kind of sounds like we're robots and He has the remote. And he's just, it's kind of this cold relationship. Not even a relationship, this cold, I don't know, this cold tie. But it's not. It's about relationship. And so God flows through us. He works through us. And that only comes if He's in us. If He fills us up first, and what overflows is how we love our neighbor and also how we can love ourselves. Because God is in us and we see ourselves the way God sees us, and so loved and forgiven and healed and restored and precious. We see ourselves that way and we start to see others that way when you make God the priority. That is the will of God, is to have Him first in our lives. So one, love God first and foremost. Love God with all of our heart, our soul, mind, and strength. That right there, if you do that, God will do the rest. Because the next step is to love your neighbor, which becomes so much easier when you love God and God is in you and He's flowing through you. And how do we love our neighbor? Well, that's when we come to our verse. Romans 12:6-8. In His grace, God has given us different gifts for doing certain things well. So if God has given you the ability to prophesy, speak out with as much faith as God has given you. If your gift is serving others, serve them well. If you are a teacher, teach well. If your gift is to encourage others, be encouraging. If it is in giving, give generously. If God has given you leadership ability, take the responsibility seriously. And if you have a gift for showing kindness to others, do it gladly. You can do all of that. You can use the gifts God has given you. Those gifts can flow through you beautifully when you put God first, when you love Him wholeheartedly first. Then the overflow is how we use the gifts to love others. Now, love is kind of I've kind of struggled with that word. Like, how do you really love others? I know how I love my kids. I know how I love my husband, my family, but it's different with other people, right? Like, how do I really love them? I don't know that I know how to truly love people. Well, I was sitting in a service I want to say last year, but it was probably the year before that because last year was kind of dead in the water. His potential church, and it was Pastor Troy Gramling. And he said, love is an active engagement in the well being of others. I love that. He also said, love is adding value intentionally to other people. Adding value intentionally to other people. And that helps me put like handles on it. Remember, I'm always talking about how when you're reading the Bible and some of these concepts in the Bible, it feels like almost like trying to grab a cloud. You just can't grasp it. It just kind of goes right through your fingers because it feels so hard to wrap our brains around. Well, this put handles on it for me to love others intentionally with the gifts God has given me. So loving God first, foremost, all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength, with everything in us. Then the overflow of that helps us love others and love ourselves. And how do we love others? By giving the gift that God's given us to others intentionally and adding value to their lives through the gifts that God has given you. And what I love, you're like, Nichole, I don't know what my purpose is. I have no idea, no clue. I am sitting here, I am waiting, I want to, but I don't know what it is. The great thing is, God has given each of us a gift. And I love that it's a gift because God doesn't take back gifts. It is yours. You have it. And then the scripture breaks it down so easy for us because it's not hard. It's not like if you have the gift of tightrope walking across the Grand Canyon to love others, do it. And do it without blinking. It's like, what? No, it's not hard. It's saying if you can teach, teach. If you love to serve others, then serve them well. If you like to encourage other people, then be encouraging. Each one of us has this gift. And what we do is we separate it from purpose, we separate it from calling, and we say, it's just what I do. It's not really big enough. It doesn't change much, but that's not true. If you're using the gift intentionally, with God flowing through that gift to others, it is life changing because it's not about you, it's about them. Purpose, and I wrote a study. Some of you are going through it right now. It's called Journey to Purpose. If you don't have it, pick it up right now. Go to NicholeChavez.com and you can get it, or I'll put a link in the comments after this. But purpose is about giving it away. It's not about hoarding it. It's not about you. It's about others. It's about giving. And we can do that easily with the gifts God has given us. We can easily serve other people. And these gifts that we have, they come naturally to us. It comes naturally to encourage, or even just to smile at someone or talk to them and add value by seeing them or hearing them. Maybe you're great at listening. That is a gift. And that's how you add value to someone's life. That's how you love them. But first and foremost is to love God. That is his will. In the scriptures, go back and read Mark 12, and they're asking what is the greatest commandment. The greatest commandment is to love God first, and then to love others, and then tells us how we can practically love others. And then I told you, God works through us. He doesn't just use us and discard us. For me, using, I don't like the word. It has a negative tone to it. But flowing through or working through means we're doing it with God. He's actually doing it. We're the conduit, we're the bridge, we're the messenger, the ambassador, but God is actually doing it. So it takes the pressure off of us to get it right, knowing God's going to get it right. He's going to do it through us, and he's going to do it right. And we don't have to worry about what we think or what we look like. We don't have to worry about what others think or others feel or others' opinions, because it doesn't matter. It's God anyway. We have that relationship with him. He so fills us up, and what comes out of us is the overflow of God in us, working through those gifts to love others. That's purpose, my friend. That is purpose right there. And number 4, don't quit. Don't quit. Keep going. Be faithful with what you have. Be faithful in your relationship with God, loving God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. Be faithful in loving others. through the gift God has given you. Do it repeatedly and always and as often as you can. Look for opportunities to add value intentionally with the gift God has given you to others, to the people around you. Let God work through you, flow through you. Let it be the overflow of your life that people see the gift they enjoy. That intentionality is the overflow of God. And then don't quit. Don't stop. Don't get discouraged. Don't listen to people around you. Don't listen to the voice inside of you. Keep going. Don't quit. That is purpose fulfilled. I know I have so many messages of I'm looking for my purpose. I'm hoping it's here, or I don't want to miss it. I don't want to miss it. I'm hoping that I don't close my eyes or blink and it was gone. It was supposed to be right there. And I don't know if you've read my post the last couple of days when I've been talking about purpose, and sometimes I feel like God is hiding it, like an Easter egg hunt. And he's like, okay, close your eyes. He hides them. He counts to 3. And then he says, go. And then you're looking everywhere and it's like other people found theirs and I haven't found mine, and you're like, God. And then he's like, ooh, I forgot where I put yours. Let me look around. Sometimes you can feel that way, but it's not. In those moments, what you do is you reset. You go back to the greatest commandment, which is to love God. You sit in that moment with him. I'll never forget, there was a time when my heart was just like burning to do something for God. And my husband, he's been in ministry for 18 years, and he was like on fire. Like he is just doing, and everything in me wanted that so bad, but I couldn't find my place. And he was sitting on the couch and I was sitting on the floor in our living room telling him this, and like tears. I was upset. I felt like, why? When's it going to be my turn? And James, just brilliant. At the time I was mad at him, I'll be honest. I was furious with him, actually. You could ask him. I was so mad. But looking back, he was right. And he says, what's your relationship with God? Like, how often are you talking to him? What does that look like? Because all this that you're displaying wouldn't be happening if your focus was on God. And I was so mad at him. I'm like, no, I want to do for God. You're not listening to me. I want to do. Stop telling me I have to sit still. But he was right. He was right. I wasn't ready because my focus wasn't God. It was doing for God, but not having a relationship with God. It was wanting to do something, but without him. And you can't do for God without God. Then you're doing it for yourself. So in those moments when you feel like, God, I don't know what it is, or I don't know what the next step is, or I feel kind of forgotten, that's when you go right back. You go right back to step 1, which is to love God and build that relationship with, because that is our first purpose anyway. The rest of it is an overflow that, yes, God has purposed you to do, but he needs to be in the middle of it. He needs to be in the midst of it. If not, it's all you and all for you, not even for God. And I learned that night. My husband has taught me a lot of hard lessons. That's just one of them. And they've been hard to take and hard to learn. But looking back, I'm so grateful that he was honest with me, that we had that hard conversation, that he loved me enough to tell me the truth. And so I sat back, and it was years. It was years before I feel like I stepped into what God had for me. But in the meantime, I loved God and I loved others with the gift that he's given me. And for me, it's loving people. I mean, showing value for them is looking them in the eye, letting them know they're seen, and listening to them and care about what they care about, encouraging them, smiling at them. And so I just continue to do that. I just continue time and time again because I saw the difference it made, and I knew that's God had created me with that gift. And before you know it, here I am today. But they're incremental steps. In fact, I did a podcast. I'll have to find it and maybe post it here tomorrow, talking about how we want to be at the 5-year dream today. But that's not the way God has it. They're incremental steps to it. We have to learn and we have to grow, but God has to be in the middle of it all. So purpose number one, be faithful with what you have. And the very first thing you have is a relationship with God. Sit with him. Learn from him. Do everything you can to build that strong foundation in God. And he does the rest. That overflow will come out as loving people through the gift God has given you. And then don't quit. Do not quit.